Welcome to episode 212 of the Necronama.com. Throughout the month of October, author and editor Alex Woodroe is joining us as we take a deep dive into Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Today's episode, The Viewing. All right, so we're back here for episode 7, Alex's favorite. Alex, I want you to know before we begin that I just took an edible. It should kick in before this episode's over. I also have my favorite drink, Dr. Pepper, here with me. Dr.
Wonderful.
Pepper does not pay me to say their name, but they should. They should just send me free pop. That'd be free soda. How the fuck long have I been out of the Midwest? And I just said pop. Holy shit. Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say something.
I literally, Alex, I haven't said that in 10 years. I don't know why I said it there. It must be the edible. All right, Don, what kind of cocaine are you snorting? No.
Space cocaine. Thanks for the space cocaine. I think it's time for me to leave.
I feel like such a loser now. All I've got is like pomegranate juice. I'm still recovering after this wedding I went to.
Well, too much space cocaine?
We were using space cocaine like body glitter. It was amazing. There were like handfuls of it in the ladies' bathroom, and you just throw that shit.
Just throw it in each other's faces.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It's like
Joe Biden had a great time sniffing everyone.
I'm not even actually
this is the
here
end.
Right now. I'm just imagining all of this.
Like, this is the second favorite, I guess, cocaine-related quote from a movie. It's my second favorite one. My first favorite has to be Michael Cera, because of who Michael Cera is. Mm-hmm. And how unassuming he is to play a character. Play himself as a character, but play himself in a sense that he's nothing like what he actually is. Because we all look at Michael Cera as like, oh, he's just a nerd, geek, weirdo, whatever. But just the fact that he's in a movie where he grabs some cocaine, walks up to somebody and says, hey, excuse me, does this smell like cocaine? And then blows it in the person's face. I love that scene. The movie, it's got James Franco in it, so it'll be a while before I watch it again. But or maybe we can use AI to digitally remove him from the movie and add somebody worthy.
Oh, look, a positive use of AI.
Yeah, look, it worked for Army of the Dead. It worked for Army of the Dead. You got one sex offender, or at least somebody who was accused of sexual harassment and sexual assault out of a movie. You put somebody who's very wholesome in the form of Tig Notaro in, and I had no complaints. I think she was one of the best people in that movie. Anyway, space cocaine.
I didn't know this about myself. I apparently have 2 favorite cocaine quotes. I just learned this about myself while you've been talking, and they're both from comedians. My first is Richard Pryor when he said, "I'm not addicted to cocaine. I just like the way it smells."
I forgot about that one.
Fantastic quote. Yeah. And Robin Williams is the one I always come back to. Cocaine is God's way of telling you you're making too much money.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Oh, yes.
All right, there's a joke that I want to put into a book. You
should keep it for yourself, or else we're all going to steal it and use it in all of our books.
No, I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you offline. But there's a joke that I want to use where it's just, it just perfectly drives that home about like what cocaine is. Almost in the same vein as in 21 Jump Street, where they're trying to decide what drugs to bring to a party. It's like, we just want to have fun. We don't want to ruin their lives.
Man. So, Alex, you've been looking forward to episode 7.
I have. I think it's my favorite episode, and I've been so curious to see how you're going to feel about it, because I know that you have this whole idea of an anthology having to have a sort of togetherness about it. And I do know that this episode is the odd one out. Like, it's way out there compared to the others. And I feel like as an editor, as an anthologist, I actually look for these, and I always have tried to have 1 or 2 or 3 way out there choices and everything. And I'm so curious how you feel about it.
I was actually going to say something really similar, but I'm going to interrupt myself really fast. Tell us who directed and wrote this before we forget.
Of course. So The Viewing is brought to you by Panos Cosmatos and Aaron Stewart with Panos Cosmatos directing.
Fantastical. Yeah, so no, I was thinking the exact same thing. But to get there, I'm going to give you my fast version of this episode. I feel like the first 2/3 doesn't belong in this anthology. It's I love it. Okay, I love it, but I don't feel like it fits anything. It's so different and so strange.
Mhm.
But the last 1/3, even though I'm later going to say something mean about the last 1/3, right now,
You wouldn't
the last
say.
Really?
1/3 is so incredibly creep show, so incredibly anthology, so like it just, yeah, it totally makes the rest work. And I feel like we had to go on this weird, boring, it's not boring, but boring comparatively kind of journey to get to this moment. So
Mhm.
I do think it fits. And I agree with exactly what you said about anthologies. When Laurel Hightower and I were editing Shattered and Splintered, the story that I didn't necessarily totally thought at first fit was Vincent Vana Cava's Head in the Fridge.
Mhm.
It is my favorite story. It's my favorite thing I read that year. It is this story that I think about all the time, and I laugh and I just adore it. But it didn't fit with everything else, and that made it stronger.
Mhm.
Because while it didn't fit with the way the others were written, the themes fit, and it really broke up some stories, and it just hit this point where everything shifted and it made it all work better. And that's a long way to get back to this episode. I think this does the same thing, and I wish that this would have been episode 5. I feel like this could have been a great way to break up.
Yeah.
I don't like the order of these episodes, but I feel like this would have really broken up this kind of weird place you hit with the 2 Lovecraft episodes that are together.
Okay.
And I think it could have been better curated.
Well, especially where we talked about the idea of you had the rats and witchcraft and all that stuff that had been used in previous ones. Yeah, it would have been a good, I don't want to say palate cleanser, but tone changer.
It's weird. I don't have all these feelings about the order of things. I don't feel like, but that's just a me thing. I don't feel like it would have changed my perception of them if they were in a different order necessarily. And I do struggle with order of things in anthologies as well, like how to pace everything so that people enjoy it, because I know for other people it matters. But having said that, I can totally see your point of how this could have broken up those 2 episodes, and by being so wildly out there, work as a palate cleanser. And I love that it is so out there, because I feel like it's kind of by exploring these sorts of extremes that you can actually better define the midline of what you're trying to say with a project, right? By showing me what's all the way out there and all the way at the edge of the property, I kind of get a better sense of the lay of the land. And I really love that about it. And besides that, I'm biased. And even if it hadn't worked with the anthology at all, I still would have loved it, because I just love it so much as an individual piece. And that slowness in the beginning, I am such a sucker for that. So like this is going to make it very obvious why I love this episode. Now that you mentioned that the start is kind of not boring, but it does have like a slow, deliberate sort of pace about it, right?
Yeah.
One of my absolute favorite movies is Death Proof, right? Nothing fucking happens in that movie for the first 3 decades in order to bring you a payoff at the end that makes it one of my absolute most favorite movies ever. Another one of my favorite movies ever is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Nothing fucking happens in that movie for 3 decades in order to eventually bring you to a payoff. Like, I'm a sucker for this when it's done deliberately and when it's done with a lot of character work, right? And there's so much character work in this episode. The lines are so good. The characters are so almost caricatures of themselves, but in a way that I find exciting and like it's exploring something, not in a way that I found like cheesy and cheap, you know? And yeah, I can you tell that I really like this episode?
I'm struggling to see that, but
Yeah.
We'll see as we go. Maybe we'll find out. No. What were we going to say, Don?
Oh no, I was going to say that the pacing for this one, because we've talked about this with other films, other TV series, things like that. The pacing for me worked, and this isn't because I sped it up. I kept asking questions and writing down questions, based off of the way that people were interacting throughout this, like first getting in the van, which I'm sitting there thinking like, you guys are all getting to the back of a van. You don't know where the hell you're going. You don't know what you're doing. Just that
on
you've
top
been
of that,
summoned.
he tried to run them over. He flew at them.
Guys, it was a different time back then. It was a different time. Did you see how they passed that cigarette from one to the other? That's so hot. You're so dead if you do that now. That's not. It was a different time.
Well, no, you bring up a good point, because it was a different time, because I'm looking at it with a different lens. Because in the 70s, hitchhiking was still very popular, and not that they're hitchhiking, but hitchhiking was very popular in the U.S. That was how, from the 50s, the 60s, and through the 70s, that was how you got from point A to point B if you didn't have a car, because you didn't have Uber. Somebody might pull over and give you a ride. But yeah, with this taking place in the 70s, it's believable for the time. But for me, I'm thinking in my own head, how is no one at least overly suspicious?
It's so cool. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even feel weird about that one. And now that you mention it, hitchhiking is still super popular here. Like, that is still right now the way that we get around a lot of the times. I've done it. I pick hitchhikers up. It's like old people, young people, everybody's hitchhiking. It's super normal. So that didn't even ding me at all. Like, them passing a cigarette from one mouth to another dinged me. But the fact that they got into this strange van, I was like, yeah, that's totally normal. That makes sense.
well, I mean, you have fewer serial killers than we do, because that was honestly one of the reasons why people, at least why hitchhiking became a bad thing, was you started having all these movies that showed people who hitchhiked and they died, and it was typically a serial like one of the best ones is the Hitcher. For me, one of the best ones is the Hitcher, where they show how somebody does something very simple, like, I'm driving, I need some company. And that was the other reason why people would pick somebody up. It's like, I need some company to keep me awake while I'm driving.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the way it's done here, the cigarette, that didn't bother me as much as them getting in the car. So for me, it's flipped. It's kind of like, I understand that, because people still do that, whether they're smoking marijuana, whether they happen to be just smoking a cigarette. You have that happen where people are kind of like, oh, let me get a drag off of that. Like, even when he lights the cigarette, he puts it in his mouth, lights it, or the driver puts it in his mouth, lights it, and then hands it back.
Yeah.
And my first reaction was like, but then I thought, this is 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been, we haven't had the AIDS crisis yet. We haven't had, the
COVID.
We haven't had COVID,
No, because that was my thing. It's not that I find it disgusting or anything. If anything, I find it super hot. It's just that my whole body leapt up and went, COVID. I'm like, no, they don't have that problem yet. Chill, Alex.
Yeah, because like in the 80s, you didn't share. I mean, the idea of sharing a cup with somebody, even though it was disproven that you could not get AIDS that way. Yeah. There are all these people that were, man, don't share cups with somebody. If this person comes over your house, they have to use this one cup, or you have to wash it was all these measures that people took that were unnecessary, and they were still doing well after it was proven that you could not contract this disease that way. Yep. But then again, COVID, people were doing the same things where it's like, well, I need to do this so I don't get COVID, but I'm going to go ahead and do this thing that is 10 times worse.
Yeah. But I mean, like, speaking of the fact that it is a different time and they do go by different rules, and, we do have to keep that in mind all the time. I am curious if you guys have a decade, and I want to try to guess your decade, and then you'll tell me if I'm right or not.
Okay.
Can I? So I think James is a 90s sort of person.
Oh, 100%.
And really? Did I guess that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like Dawn is, I want to say 30s, 40s sort of person.
1930s and 40s.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean as far as like liking that time period?
Aesthetic wise, yeah. If you're into a specific decade in terms of the aesthetic, the music.
Is this because I suffer from depression that you're linking me with the depression?
No, yes, Dawn. That is exactly how I got to that conclusion. Wow. Good guess, Josh.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. Don't lie. I don't know. It was just a wild guess. I think I was thinking in terms of the music, maybe, but I don't know. Tell me what your decade is, then, if I'm way off.
It's a combination of 80s and 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool.
I know. But no, not that I have anything against, because there's some great stuff that came out of the 30s.
Mhm.
And definitely, one of the things I'm studying right now happens to be within that time period of 30s and 40s for my research. But it's because
maybe that's what I was channeling. There we go.
Maybe you were trying to tell me you have to do your homework. You have to listen to your PhD advisor. Go do your homework. But no, I mean, I would definitely say the aesthetic of that time period was cool, as far as like the way people dressed, and even the music that was available. But no, I am hard. Like my wife went to Walmart this morning, and in the clearance section there was a Trapper Keeper. She bought it because she was like, "Oh, I haven't seen one of these in a while." So and she's about 6-7 years younger than I am. So we grew up in different periods, grew up in different countries. So when she saw it, I immediately went, like, fuck yeah, Trapper Keeper. I had this exact one when I was in high school. I'm sorry, in high school. I had this exact one when I was in middle school. And she just looked at me and she's like, well, I saw it and it was like $5. And I was like, oh my God, was there another one? Because I want one. She's like, I just bought it because I didn't want it to go to waste. And so it's like, so I could have it?
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh my.
So yeah, that period, like I see a Trapper Keeper, I immediately am like, oh, these are the things that were cool for my childhood. I need to hold on to this.
I have a theory on why she's pulling the 1930s for you. And I don't know, I can't remember if this made it into past episodes or not, but Prohibition was going on at the beginning of the 1930s. So
oh my God.
I think we're just coming back there.
It might be something to do with that conversation we had. Yeah, that would make sense. Because I don't know, it wasn't really like a conscious decision of why. I was just guessing, but yeah.
James, are you calling me an alcoholic?
Yes. 100%.
Or a narc.
Oh man. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be surprised, judging by my reaction to this episode, that my decade is the 70s fully and entirely. I have a very love relationship with the 70s and with the music and with the look and all of that. So
nice.
I told you this episode was custom made for me.
Yeah. I hated it. No, I'm totally kidding.
I mean, I do wonder sometimes, why do we love retro stuff so much? Because everybody loves something that's like
it's
retro.
Safe.
Is that it? Is it because we're like remembering all the good parts and we get to ignore all the bad stuff and just focus on something nice and shiny?
Look, Alex, I don't know if you know this or not, but in 2016, this guy won the presidency of the United States off of this phrase called "Make America Great Again."
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Someone should write a book about him. Yeah.
Well, somebody has definitely booked him. So 91 charges, probably more by the time that this airs.
Somebody's thrown the book at him.
Yes, but I think it's the idea of it gives you comfort. It's something you're familiar with, and it's this weird nostalgia that I'm going to say that a lot of Americans have, where they think back to the 80s. I think back to the 80s and I think about cultural stuff that was cool. Politically, shit was horrible.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you had crack, politically and socially, you had crack, you had AIDS, you had the war on crime, you had Reagan, you had still the height of the Cold War, you had Reagan, you had, I don't know. I mean, you had some bad movies, you had some really good movies, but most importantly, we had Reagan. By the way, you can actually buy John Hinckley's artwork on eBay.
Oh my! Well, I didn't expect us to go there.
Well, yeah,
and that's just the U.S. The rest of the world was very fucked up too. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. We don't even have a lot of nostalgia for like pre-89 stuff because like we were under dictatorship, so it doesn't work that way for us. But weirdly we have nostalgia for like the things that we saw in media that was coming to us from America after the revolution. So we have like nostalgia for the American 80s that we never went through. We just saw them after the fact, which puts like a whole nother layer of rose tinted goggles on it, because all we knew were like advertisements for kids games and cartoons and the soda and like all of the fun bubbly stuff, right? And we knew it way after the fact, so it was even more sanitized and bubbly and adorable and bubblegum colored. But yeah, that's what we have sort of nostalgia for, a time that we never even went through. It's hilarious. And people do try to like collect stuff and dress like that and have, oh gosh, what are they called? Garbage pail kids?
Oh, the garbage pail kids?
Oh, yeah.
We never had that stuff. It's impossible for us to be nostalgic for something we never had. And yet here we are. We have people who are collecting that stuff out of nostalgia. It's so funny.
So if I want to take a trip there, can I just bring a bunch of 80s stuff and trade it for like rents and rides and things?
Oh, yeah.
That's way easier for me to get than money. So, yeah, no, I want to ask, because I know that Don's going to ask and I want to steal it. This beautiful scene where they're all getting the drinks that they would want and the drugs they would want and the cigarettes they would want. What would each of you have sitting there for you?
Oh, wow.
Oh, fuck you, James.
I'll start because I knew it was coming. I would have something super lame, like some soda that I can't get anymore. Like, I don't know. It wouldn't be Surge, but it would be like that, like something that I had that I loved that I can't get now, you know?
Crystal Pepsi.
No, I never liked that. But
really?
But you know, because I don't drink, so it quickly limited a lot of my options. But then I thought, what would you give me alcohol wise? And it's so lame because I don't drink, and I just missed this one shot called a Washington apple. And that's what I would have. I would just fucking have a Washington apple, and everyone else would be like, well, that's lame. And I'd be like, I haven't had one of these in 20 years. Oh my God. So those are my two. And if there were cigarettes, they would be cloves, because that's the only thing I ever enjoyed smoking. And I think today they would fucking kill me. Like I'd take one puff and be like, what the fuck? But yeah, so cloves were my answer.
Clothes are an American thing, right? Because I've never been able to source those, like to find one of those anywhere else. They must have been an American thing.
They're definitely, I would say it's a hemispheric thing here, because I think they have them in Canada too. I don't know if they originate in the US, but yeah, they're, I don't know, it's almost like hippie cigarettes, right, James?
Well, I guess they're illegal now, aren't they?
No, I don't think they are. I think
I don't know.
Spoken like a man who's sitting on a stash of clove cigarettes. No.
Oh yeah, this.
Oh my God, you're right. They were banned. Yeah, I did not know that.
That's what I would have. He would apparently have kept soda and cigarettes from many years ago for me. What would each of you have?
I'd have, my tastes change super often and based on my mood, but one thing is consistent. I would probably have a nice cold tall glass of like a super thick wheat ale, like a wheat beer, one of those thick ones that's like basically you're having a grain soup, not just a beer. I love those things. And probably rolling tobacco. I used to smoke rolling tobacco before I quit. Bali shag. I used to roll my own. I thought I was pretty cool. Kind of still miss it sometimes. And I really actually miss the ritual of rolling the cigarette more than I miss actually smoking the cigarette. So yeah, that would be mine.
I feel that way about mixing drinks. Like when I quit drinking, it was because my alcoholism was way out of control. But I loved mixing drinks for people. I dated a bartender for years, and she taught me really cool stuff. And I love the ritual of mixing drinks, and I would totally do it today because I still love it. But I know that would definitely open a very bad door for me. So I do not. But I totally understand the ritual over the actual
Yeah, I get that about mixing drinks too. It's almost like a foodie thing. It's connected to all the culinary arts. I totally get that.
What about you, Don?
Oh my God. All right.
Space
So
cocaine.
I
Just a little mound of space cocaine.
mean,
He
if
would have a
it's-
mountain that would make Boy George jealous.
I doubt that.
You ever see that interview where he came out and he still had Coke all over his face? That was like my favorite thing ever. I adored Boy George. So yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm gonna go back and watch that video now because I forgot about it. But I guess as far as something to smoke, it would probably be. I mean, this would be boring, but it would probably just be a Cuban cigar. And I know that's weird for Jane because it's like you already have them. But I think it would be the issue of it was from somebody's private reserve. Like, oh, we found these cigars that were part of Fidel Castro's personal collection. And I'm like, oh shit, this is outstanding. Because he quit smoking at one point. So like he still had them. But as far as a drink, because you had alcoholic drinks, you had teas and stuff that were there. I think for me, it would come down to if it were a tea, it would have to be one of the teas that I had when I was in China. Because I tried to redo it and I cannot replicate like the flavors that I had at the hotel when they made the tea.
Yeah.
It was outstanding. And then I guess snack or food wise, if they were to well, let's go with alcohol. If it were an alcoholic drink, it would have to be a freshly poured from the draft, a freshly poured Guinness.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Like, again, it sounds boring, but it's
no, when it's
like,
good, when it's fresh, when it's good, it's really, really good. And it's so different from what you get in just a can.
Exactly.
People who've only had Guinness in a can are probably like, that's a very boring choice. And I understand why, because it's not the same drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you see where I'm going. It's the aspect of like there's a massive difference in the flavor, the texture of it. Even the color of it is outstanding. And I would go to this one Irish pub in Atlanta just to have Guinness on tap. Like that was where I would go. I drove way out of my way because they had it, and it seemed like nobody else. I mean, this is the early 2000s. And it seemed like nobody else had it.
Oh man!
But that would be it for me. And if it were like a food, a fresh apple Danish.
Ooh. Can I change my answer now?
Sure.
My absolute.
Sure, why not?
I just remembered I haven't had one in so long. My absolute favorite cocktail used to be, it's called Poor Man's Black Velvet around these parts, and it's like half the glass is freshly poured Guinness, but it has to be fresh on tap. And the other half has to be like a fresh sour pear cider, like a hard cider. And together they create this like texture, this like chemical reaction, and they form this texture that's super velvety and smooth. And the tastes are fantastic together. And that was like my favorite cocktail always. So,
see, now you're reminding me of one last. I'm going to say this. This I have not had in probably over a decade. Orangina.
What's an Orangina?
It's this French orange soda, and they actually have like pulp in the soda.
Oh, I know those. Yeah.
Oh my God! Like the sodas and the that you have in your like. I don't remember drinking like Coke or Pepsi whenever I was in Europe. Like Orangina was the first thing I went for. Oh my God! All right, let's stop. Again, it's hard to find in the U.S. I mean, there are places that have it, but you've got to dig. At least in the places I've been, you've got to like really look for it. And
so
now I'm going to look for it online.
If any of our listeners want to lure us over to their house, they know exactly what they need to do. So now that we've given them that answer,
Oh man, that's so much easier. If you want to lure Don over, just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go watch The Office."
Why would I do that when I can watch it at home, dude? Come on, seriously. There has to be something that would.
I'm gonna put on
It's like we're doing space cocaine.
Okay. Fair. All right. I have a question too, then, since we're doing questions. Although I know you're going to hate me. I should have prepared you for this one, actually. Sorry that I didn't think to do that.
I'm just gonna answer immediately. First thing that comes in my head. Let's do this.
Perfect. But like, I love that this guy, what's his name? Lionel, right? Which, by the way, we start off with calling him like a ruthless hunter, and his name is Lionel. Like, they're totally trying to sell this guy like some sort of alpha male, which is hilarious, because then the more you get to know him, that's not what he is. But anyway, I love that this guy had this like extraordinary piece of unknown superhuman thing, right? And he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to call these specific, how many were they? 5 people to look at it, and just these 5 people, and that's it. And I thought that his choices were super interesting. So I was like, okay, if you had something like that, like really extraordinary, superhuman reality, like you don't even know what it is and where it came from, but you know this is a big deal, who would you bring to look at it? And would you have, like, I don't know, a writer, a musician, a scientist, somebody like that who pops into mind that you would like to bring to see it?
I want to bring Logan Paul. And Logan Paul, my reasoning is this: if he lives, this is going to go viral, and I'm going to get like even more attention and more love. And if it goes violently, horribly wrong, and Logan Paul is killed, I've done the world a favor. So I'm bringing Logan Paul. That's my first choice.
That's not a bad idea. I guess he could also wrap Andrew Tate into it. Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, that's great. We can have like an alpha male meeting, right? People call themselves alpha males, or so Andrew Tate, Logan Paul, Trump, Jordan Peterson. Sorry, Joe Rogan fans, but Joe Rogan.
Oh, Joe Rogan. Oh yeah.
And
Joe would be
nothing against him
alien.
personally, but he has entertained some ridiculous stuff over the years. So I'm like, you know what? You want to see aliens? Fuck it. Come over here. I'll show you an alien.
Let the universe decide your fate. Our hands are off of this now.
Yeah, my honest answer is very torn, because I feel like maybe I'm not able to answer this because I'm still me, so I'm still thinking like me. But like, if it was just me, I would just invite like my friends, like the people that have been there through everything. I'd be like, hey, let me show you this really cool fucking shit. But if I was Lionel, I don't think that I would have that same thought process.
Well, yeah, because he wants to answer this mystery, right? Because it's just a meteorite. It's just a rock, at least in that viewing room. But bringing a musician, bringing in a physicist, or you always bringing people from the arts and sciences in. So you got writers, you've got musicians, you got the science aspect. So I think it's a really cool way of trying to get at understanding what's there, because when he's praising Eric Andre's character, he basically says, all art aspires to be music because of the way in which it works, because you also have a mixture of science and art within music. You have a mixture of science and art within different humanities. One of my go-tos whenever I'm talking about history, I just say history is the combination of art and science, where you have the science of the research, but you have the art as far as how you present your findings, how you present your content, your information. Because different people have different styles. People have different ways in which they use words. People have different methods that they use in order to pursue their research. But by going into this, you kind of understand from his position as this guy with power, with money, with access, that these are things that he doesn't have access to, as far as the knowledge, the scientific knowledge, or the medical. I mean, medicine is science, but the medical knowledge, with music, with writing, anything like that, he doesn't understand it. Or I'm sorry, he can't do it. He brings people who can do it to see what he can now understand, or what they can understand and make sense of whatever this mysterious object is. kind of like Edward Norton's character in the Glass Onion sequel to Knives Out, where it's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I find people who do know.
Yeah. When I first started to think about this question, I actually took it super seriously, kind of like Lionel does, and thought about who I'd bring. And I was like, okay, I'd bring Katie Mack, the astrophysicist. I'd bring China Miéville as the writer. I'd bring Cosmo Sheldrake as my musician. And by the way, dear listeners, if you've never heard of the Sheldrake family, I highly, highly encourage you to research these people. Dad Rupert Sheldrake is like a parapsychologist, and then the kids are Merlin Sheldrake. He just had this book out about fungi, and he's a researcher and a scholar of fungi. And Cosmo is a musician, and they're just fantastic. So look these people up. Trust me, it's a whole thing. And then I kept thinking about it, and I was like, how much of this is actually Lionel taking this question seriously, and how much is it just a flex? How much is he actually just bringing these people in, almost as if I'd say, yeah, fuck it, I have all this money, I'm going to bring in Metallica to look at this asteroid, just because I want to bring in Metallica, not because I actually think they're going to be useful in any sort of way. Like, I want to have the flex that I got to hang out with Metallica.
Right.
Like,
no, I definitely feel that.
Because these people are like fictional, famous people. We can't actually know for sure how famous they are, but I am getting sort of a feeling that some of this is just a flex. Some of this is just going for the big names for the sake of having those big names in your living room. You know, like some editors do anthologies. Sorry. Couldn't help it. Sorry.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. No, I totally feel that all of this is a flex, and it's one of my issues with the end. I said I was going to have something mean to say about the end, and I feel like he's just a collector, and he's collecting this experience for himself of hanging out with them and feeling important. He's the one who can give them something they can't get anywhere. You know, he's talking about music that he owns that no one else can hear, and he's the equivalent of this guy that has a Picasso and doesn't let anybody fucking see it. You know, like it's just mine. It's in a safe. I don't look at it, but you can't look at it. Ha ha ha. You know, and that's how I feel with everything he does. And the mean thing that I want to say is just that I don't feel like the alien is enough. And what I mean by that is, for the story, I think it's enough. But if this guy, let's say he's Elon Musk in real life, right? Like, he's got so much money, he literally doesn't know what to do with it. And so he has this experience, but I feel like what he gives them is still something that we could understand, and we could be not prepared for, but like it seems realistic in some way that he could have access to an alien. Whereas I feel like this almost, I don't want to say we needed a third Lovecraft story, but like this should have been like a cosmic level of insanity that he presented them with. Like that would mean more to me. And so again, I think it works. I don't know if logically it's enough.
I think I kind of like the contrast of all of his money and power and all of that stuff ending up ultimately in kind of a mundane sort of ending. That does something for me, because I don't want a person like that to have even a glimpse of anything truly cosmically, transcendent before they die. They don't deserve that. No, let them just be eaten by a very run-of-the-mill alien. That's about as much as they should get. Even that's a bit too much for him, but fair enough.
You open the door and it's just a dog. That's all he's got in there. This is my dog.
Yeah.
And then the dog bites everybody.
The rabbit dog eats his face. Yeah, I would be okay with that, because that's how it should go down. No, I don't want somebody like him to have access to anything that's more than what other people have access to. You know what? He's had that his entire life. It's enough.
Well, that's the problem with people like that.
Still what I expect.
I was gonna say that's the problem with them, because it's an idea of that hunger, that desire, whatever it is. It's never fulfilled, because it's never going to be enough, no matter how much money you have. Like the house they lived in, I think I wrote in my notes, like, this is the kind of room I want, where you have I said I want that conversation room.
Yeah.
Because again, that was a very 60s, 70s thing where you had that sunken area for conversation.
It is
not that I'm going to have a
gorgeous.
conversation, but that would be great
for space cocaine.
Great. Yes, be great for space cocaine, and it would also be great for you just sit there and watch movies, or in his case, I'm going to sit here and listen to music. But even beyond that, before they even get to the whole aspect of the alien or just the meteorite itself, you're getting a sense that this guy has done a lot of things that he really probably shouldn't still be alive to reap the benefits of. I mean, he has the hematologist, Dr. Zara, who's taking care of him. And he even says, I would be dead if it weren't for her because she's able to keep me alive, blah, 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 blah. But you get the sense that beyond the album, the golden AK-47, which I immediately want to add to my collection. And it made me actually here. I'll tell you about the golden AK story. My mom was deployed to Iraq. And because she had such a high position within the military, she got to hold Saddam Hussein's golden AKs.
Oh.
Like she has pictures of when they were like seizing all the stuff, as they were going, not seizing for personal use, just like they went to palace and it was like, hey, we're going to put the stuff in storage because we don't want anybody coming here and stealing this shit. And she was just so proud. She's like, I got to hold Saddam Hussein's guns. And I'm like, Mom, do you realize how much blood is probably on those weapons that you're holding? And she's kind of not dismissed it, but it was that sense of there's a fucking story behind that golden AK. And I want that story. I want to know what the hell was going on to where Hector, it was Hector's character, right? Yeah, Hector, the driver, where Hector's, he doesn't want to talk about the story, or at least, Lionel's like, oh, that's his story. I can't tell it. But he's showcasing all this stuff that he has access to, whether it's the album that he can listen to, or at least he owns, kind of like the douche bro, the farmer bro who bought the Wu-Tang album because it meant that nobody else could listen to it. But he's got this great house. He's got this great access. He's probably got politicians on his payroll. He is able to have access to so many things to where he can get the exact kind of tea that Eric Andre Randall's character wants at the right temperature, the right amount of sweetness. Like that is somebody who's scary to me, to where not just the whole van thing, which I mentioned earlier, but just the idea that I show up and you have all this stuff that is my favorite thing or something I really love that I haven't been able to access or haven't been able to replicate, but this shit about me. Yeah. And what, you're using this as a way to make me put my guard down. Yeah. And that's what's scary to me about it. The alien for me, I love the visual of it. I love the transformation. Oh yeah. I love the way in which you have all these people melting, except for Randall and the physicist, Dr. Lee, I think. Dr. Z. But just the idea that there's somebody with this much wealth, this much power, that they can know more about you than you probably know about yourself. Yeah. And they're going to use that to their advantage.
Which kind of puts me in mind of like how ads sometimes work, I know this feels like such a weird tangent, but go with me on this one.
No.
Like if we're talking about somebody who has that sort of access to know those things about you, there's currently only one clear and easy and direct line by which they would do that. Because you can hire all the private investigators you want. They're not going to find out what specific tea I like, or at least it's very unlikely. However, how much are our phones learning about us as we have conversations around them in order to be able to sell that information then to people who target us with ads, right? And it feels like that's the sort of place that somebody like him might have been able to get that information from, with enough money, with enough access, and knowing the right people and we are talking about like monumental piles and piles of money. Like we are talking about numbers that we can't even conceive. But somebody like that would be able to learn whatever our phones know about us, which is a lot of things, would be able to learn about our most recent concerns and that conversation we had about that product we were considering trying, and that one time we said we missed that specific kind of tea, right? And then the ad pops up 2 days later, the ad pops up for you to be able to order some sort of tea online, right? Because that's how it works. And that it just, the way that he handled it made me feel like it was referencing that sort of interaction that we have between people who are advertising to us. And it kind of made me wonder, how is he in that position of an advertiser? What is he selling? Because after I realized that, I started looking at him as somebody who's selling something. Like he's selling a concept, he's selling a dream, he's selling an idea. What is the idea? Because he doesn't need any more money. He doesn't need these people to give him anything tangible. So what is he actually selling, and what is he trying to get from them? And the nearest that I could come up with an answer is that what he's selling them is this sort of image of him as a benefactor, this sort of concept that the wealthy are here to be a sort of intermediary between the world and you, and they are going to take care of putting you in the correct place to have these experiences, sort of like a patron of the arts. They're going to be the people who make connections between the interesting thing that needs to be seen and the person who needs to see it, right? Sort of like a museum curator at the very highest degree. It's a whole image. Like he's making himself out to be somebody who is useful to society somehow, somebody who's important and meaningful. And what he wants from them in exchange is to corroborate in this fantasy, right? And to make him feel like he is important and meaningful and accomplished something great by bringing them there. But I don't know. It's just a super wild theory. I have no idea if any of this was actually.
No. I like that because it also keys in, not that you alluded to it, the idea of his insecurities. Because you see that with so many people. And yes, I don't have a problem picking on the Kardashians because they deserve to be picked on. But you may have seen this. I mean, obviously, because we're all connected through the internet and social media. But the idea that Kim Kardashian went and had her DMV or had her driver's license picture taken to where she shut down the DMV. She requested a time. Nobody else could be there. And the idea that you're that wealthy or that popular to where you can get something like that done. And it's not an issue of I'm doing it for the sake of my privacy or ensuring that the picture is done right, because she brought her own glam team in. But the idea that I can do this and regular people can't.
Yeah.
And that speaks to an insecurity. I mean, and that's an insecurity here with Lionel. I'm bringing all of you here to this big house that I have when he could have just met them somewhere. Hey, here, meet me at, I don't know. They have a conference room or something and says, hey, I want to invite all of you to my house to talk about this. No, he does it from the beginning. He's like, you've been summoned.
Yeah, he could have easily told them what they were coming to see. There was no reason not to tell them what they were coming to see, and he chose to just withhold that until the end. Yeah.
And even it's also that same thing when you're that kid who has that one cool toy, right? Yeah, or whatever it happens to be, the next cool video game. Nobody else on the block has it. You happen to have whatever, a limited release of a video game or whatever. You invite your friends over to play the game you invite other people to come over to play the game because you want them to be your friends. You want them to like you.
You've got a little bit of power in that moment.
Yeah. And I feel that that's him. It's like, I don't know any authentic relationships I have. So I'm going to take advantage of the position I have to bring these people I would probably have no access to, no conversations with, if I didn't have this money and this status. And I'm going to do it because I would love to call up somebody like, Samuel Jackson or whatever and say, hey, I got this book. I would love for somebody to turn it into a movie. Do you know anybody who'd be interested in writing it? And I want you to star in it. Because that's what he kind of comes off as. I know you're the one who can do this.
It's scary to even think that those people are out there. There are people who could make that phone call. There are people who do. There are people who exist in the world where they make those phone calls, or they are the ones being called. And that's a real thing. And that doesn't actually mean that that person is necessarily more talented. It doesn't necessarily mean that the book or whatever is being discussed is better. It just means that that person has that sort of access.
I think there's also just an aspect of, as long as they're all, I want to say, experts in their field, I don't think that they're the highest level like he acts like they are. I think that they're all very good, but not the best. And I think that
I got that
it
feeling
gives
too.
him, and then that gives him inflated self-worth because he's better than all of them when they're the best in their field, right? Like, I always come back to wrestling, but like, that's a big thing with any fight, whether it's boxing, wrestling, whatever. When you build up the other guy as you're the best, you're amazing, then when I beat you, I'm that much better, right?
Right.
And whereas if I said, oh, you're a piece of shit and a chicken could pin you, then where's the joy of me beating you? So I feel like it's the same. It's you're all the best of the best, and he's inflating their egos all the time. I refuse to believe that this writer is the best writer. And by doing all that, then he's in charge. He's better than the best because he's up here, you know? So I think that that's also what he's selling. He's selling himself. He's to himself. He's selling his own self-worth to himself.
It makes me feel like there's this super interesting comparison between needing status and power and sort of an actual addiction, because like the more you get of it, you start off maybe somebody who will be excited and thrilled that you were able to have an interview with your favorite author growing up, right? And then the more you get status and power, the more you're isolated from healthy and good relationships around you and honest, like real relationships around you, because having a lot of status and power does isolate you from real and healthy relationships. And the more that happens, the more you need status and power to fill that void. And then you end up somebody who needs to have the very best of the best of these like different fields, who is always looking for the next star that they can touch, always looking for the next big accomplishment that they can be accomplishing, or, you know, riding on the coattails of somebody else accomplishing it. And it does have a sort of like addictive quality, or at the very least a sort of train wreck quality. Like the more you go down that road, the worse it gets. I thought that was super interesting. He does feel kind of like an addict to me, and not in the space cocaine way, in the status and power sort of way.
No, absolutely. And I would assume, because I will never have this problem, I would assume that while it's all great and well to be a billionaire or millionaire, like as you're climbing up the ladder, right? I feel like each one of those steps is just like any kind of addiction. Like your tolerance keeps going up, and this doesn't mean anything anymore. And this man has reached a point where none of it means anything, and he needs that feedback of I did this great thing, and I built these bridges, and I gave these people an experience, and you know, just having them just basically bow down to him while they're there. And then at the same time, he's drugging everybody, and he's saying like, oh, I'm gonna open your minds, and we're gonna explore these possibilities. But no, he's fucking you up more.
Like clearly he doesn't actually want these to be experts on anything at the time. If he wanted them to be any good, he wouldn't have given them drugs. Yeah.
Well, he wanted them at their maximum abilities, though.
Wow.
Sure.
How do you think all those stockbrokers are making all that money?
All the time,
they got to use all that cocaine.
Actually, according to the Wolf of Wall Street, that's literally how it works. I had this. Sorry, I completely forgot what I wanted to say.
That's all right.
Please excuse me. I'm still exhausted after that wedding I went to and all the space cocaine we threw on each other.
That would do it.
Well, no, I was wondering, do you have a favorite character among them, like among the guests? Is there somebody that you liked in particular more than the others?
Oh God, for me, it's a tie between Randall and Dr. Shi. I liked Guy because he gave me my favorite quote from this, which is like, "Thanks for the space cocaine. Now it's time to go." But I think my issue with Peter Wells, and this is nothing against him. I've liked him in pretty much everything he's been in, whether it's RoboCop or Dexter or any other films and television shows that he's appeared in. But I just couldn't get over the fact that this character, I feel, was supposed to be David Carradine. Now, mind you, David Carradine died a while ago, but it's just the way that he carries himself.
Minor impediment.
Yes, little bit of a setback, just the idea that this probably should have been a role that he would have had, because that was the character that he kind of cultivated for decades. But I think Peter Weller did a really good job playing that. I don't even want to call it a self-reflective billionaire, because I don't even think he's self-aware, but just the idea that I've got something cool. I'm a grown-ass man in his, I guess supposed to be in his 70s. I'm this older gentleman who's known the world, got all this money, and I just have to impress these other people that have put me on a pedestal. So I didn't like that at all, because I never liked characters like that, but I can admit he did a really good job with it. Whereas Eric Andre does he plays a character that's so different than other characters that he plays, because he's a comedian and he's a comedic actor and he's a zany guy. Like, if you ever watch his stand-up, if you can make it through without laughing at the absurdity of what he's doing, then you have no funny bone at all. I mean, no matter how grotesque, how goofy, how ridiculous the stuff is that he does, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's nothing I'm going to let my kid watch anytime soon. But just to see this grand difference between who he is, what he's played before, and then I kept writing down, I was like, is this Eric Andre? It can't be, because of the way that he plays this music producer, this musician, where it's kind of like he's willing to have the praise heaped on him, but he's self-aware enough to where he's like, I can criticize my work and kind of question it. Yeah. I can say it's not that good, even though this billionaire, this guy who's got all this access to saying, I did some really good stuff. I was very ahead of my time. I was very unique with what I was preparing. But even then he's like, shit, I don't know about the next album. Next album's probably going to suck. I just can't get over it, blah, blah, blah. And understanding, like, these are people that are juxtaposed to what you see at Lionel being, where he's just so self-assured of everything that he's doing. There is no doubt other than, I'm going to die if this doctor doesn't help me. But the fact that Eric Andre's character, Randall, you got Guy, you got Dr. She, and I forgot the other character. You all get this sense that they're good at what they do, but they still have those insecurities. And they reveal those insecurities, because even Dr. She's like, yeah, I've been working on this project, blah, blah, blah. I've been working on this research, but, some of the people in my field have dismissed it.
Yeah.
And from an academic standpoint, that is a killer.
Yeah.
Like, those two characters hurt me when they were talking about what they were working on, because that's the same, we call it imposter syndrome. But these are people that are well overqualified to do what they're doing, but they're sitting there like, this is complete shit. What I wrote was shit. This music is horrible. This paper that I submitted to this conference, people panned it and said it was horrible because I had this one theory. And you just sit there absorbing it like, oh my God, I know what that feels like. Whereas Lionel's insecurity is the fact that he invited all these people to his house to show them something that he thinks is cool in order to get their approval, because they are, well-respected contemporaries. They're well-respected in their field. And as the two of you said, they're probably not the best, but he gasses them up to believe, or at least gasses them up to think that they're the best, because this is a guy with power and privilege who's saying, you guys are the greatest. Don't sell yourselves short. That last album you had was outstanding. I felt things I never felt before. So he knows how to play people.
Yeah.
And I've never liked people like that, but I can recognize a character that's doing it very well.
Yeah. I hate that. And I feel like I loved Randall instantly. Like, I felt so close to him. Every time Randall opened his mouth, I was like, this person is me, and it's so human and incredible. And I feel like Randall also had this sort of like not really buying his hype at all, which I like, because I hate people like Lionel. I hate people who are just using that praise. It's such an abusive thing to do, because praise matters to people. Sincere, honest praise, caring about what they do, having an interest in what they do, encouraging them and supporting them. It matters so much. It changes lives completely. And using that as a sort of tool to beat people with is so freaking horrible. I absolutely hate it. And I loved Randall's reactions to it all the time. And aside from that, he's the one that gave me my favorite line from the whole movie when they were discussing his career. And that was actually a question that I wrote down as something that I want to ask writers and editors and publishers and artists of all kinds. Are you taking a real risk here, or is the machinery of your industry all that matters? When they were having this conversation about his music career, that was a fantastic line. And then Randall, at one point when he's talking about his own internal struggles, he says, everyone has a black hole inside of them. What I want is for mine to stop eating everything or everyone up all the time. And that's when I was like, whoa, this dude is for real. Like, whoever wrote that line, I feel you and I hear you. And that was some really serious shit you did there, putting that line in a movie. And I just want to congratulate the hell out of you, because wow, that was amazing. And yeah, I really loved Randall so much.
I actually believe that line is why he lives.
Right.
So I look at the two who died, and they never come down. It's always still me, and like even the way they die. You have the esoteric who melts, but the novelist, he explodes. And I was like, that's so interesting. It's like there's so much inside of him that he's refused to let out that it explodes, right?
Ouch.
But then
James, ouch.
I know, I'm sitting back here, I'm like, damn.
Okay.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But then you have
the attacked like this. Thank you.
You have the two who live, and they're both the ones who question themselves, who have room for growth. And I feel like that's very purposeful. I don't know. I'm not the writer on this, but I feel like if you weren't open to actual growth and you weren't open to possibilities, you die. Yeah. And so I feel like Lionel isn't actually open to anything, because I don't feel like he's on this planet. And then the other two both claim to be, like the esoteric is, I'm open to everything, but I don't think that he is at all. And then the novelist, obviously, I feel like all of his writing is about how he's not open to anything. But the two who are live. And I find that fascinating. And that line about the void inside of me, I really feel that that's there to explain why he lives.
That's a really interesting perspective. And yeah, I totally get your point. I do like all of them in different ways. I love that the writer is the one that's like, put all the drugs in me right now. Like, he's the one who's immediately all over everything. He
sounds right.
Drinks instantly, takes the drugs instantly. It's like clearly a troubled creature, but somehow troubled sort of in a less profound way than Randall, I guess. And I do love the what was his name? Targ, I think. Targ, psychic. I do love him too. I just wish there was more meat on him. Like, I feel like I wanted to learn more about that character, and he ended up getting, the nature of the beast, it's limited amount of time and space, and you have all of these interesting characters. Somebody was going to be a little less fleshed out. I think that was Targ, unfortunately.
Yes,
I would have loved to know more about him. Yeah, he's kind of forgettable, unfortunately, and I think it would have been cool to know more about him, because it even turns out that he's like for real at one point. Like, it does genuinely, we have proof on the screen that he is for real. He's not just a random charlatan. But it's just, we didn't have enough time to really get him and get his insecurities and get what he's all about. So I'm kind of sorry about that. But I do love all of them. It's just that Randall, probably Randall is a litmus test. Like, if your favorite character is Randall, you probably need therapy.
Ooh, I made it out of that one. Hector all the way. No. Hector just means that you have a lot of past trauma that you're not ready to talk about. Hey, Don, I will say Hector might be based on Hector Gamboa, who was a member of the Gulf Cartel. And when he died, they found a gold AK near his body. And I found that very interesting. I was just randomly Googling Hector and the AK, and I found the real guy. Like, I don't know that it's based on him, but like his name's Hector. And, I mean...
Well, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of gold and platinum plated AK-47s within cartel culture. I mean, it could be based off of them, but there's a lot of it.
I found it interesting that when I Googled it, that's what I got instead of this, because I wasn't smart enough to add Cabinet of Curiosities, the first search. But did you guys notice the other gun? I could never get a good view of it, but it almost looked like it just looks odd to me. And I was like, is it like alien tech? Is it like, I don't know. It didn't look right to me at all, but I didn't know if either of you had gotten a good look at it.
No, I didn't notice anything, but we've established already that I'm not the big noticer in this group, so it's fine.
My attention was on the golden AK, because I was sitting there, I was like, there's a story here. There's a story. Where is it? I want to know. And the fact that, Hector comes in later to shoot at the alien or at least with the intent to do it, to try and kill the alien.
It is often the mark of good writing that you get that feeling, right? That there's more stories behind the story that you're actually seeing, right? And we get that a lot in this episode. Like a lot, probably for every single one of these people, and for several of the set pieces, we get that feeling that there's more story somewhere.
Oh, James, the other gun, it was an Uzi.
Yeah, but it doesn't look right.
No, that's
maybe it was just one of the views. Anyway, yeah, there was one part where it looked really weird to me, but anyway,
that makes me feel like that was Dr. Zara's gun.
Now I kind of want you to grab a screenshot of that specific view because I'm curious.
Oh, actually, let me. I'll send it to both of you. But there were a couple of other quotes that I saw, and now I closed the window that I was using. A couple of the quotes that I saw that I was reminded of as I was reading them. And it's one of Lionel's quotes. I think he had some of the best lines in this, which again, it's a testament to the writing and testament to his delivery. But he says, there's an old Zen koan. It goes like this: everyone has two lives. The second life begins the moment you realize that all along you only had one. And again, this is him taking this isn't a profound statement that he's making. It's a profound statement that he's using to drive home the fact that there's more out there. There's more that you should be doing. Like, whatever you're doing right now is not enough. But it also comes across as, that's really fucking easy for you to say when you have $1 billion. I saw Oprah do, I guess Oprah was doing this thing of like keys to happiness. And I'm like, have $1 billion.
Yeah, that helps, doesn't it?
Because regular working folk can't just, let me turn off my sadness today and be happy. It's just one of those things that irks me when somebody has money and they say stuff like that.
Let me stop thinking about the fact that my roof is leaking right now. I'll just turn that right off and, carry on with being happy. Absolutely. Right
Alex,
away.
you should be more positive. If you were positive, you would think about the fact that you're able to have water. You're able to have, not indoor plumbing per se, but an indoor shower.
I'm positive that my roof is leaking. Sorry, that was such a dad joke. Sorry.
Okay.
I will. I'll bring you some Happy Meal toys from the 1980s, and you can just plug it right in there, and
I feel better.
Well, I was going to say you won't have to plug them in. You'll be able to sell those and have a couple more houses.
It's my plan right there
on the black retro market of Cluj.
So with this reveal of where they go into that room and they've got the rock, I love the design of the rock, because typically when we get to, it's a meteorite, it's just like this
rock.
There's nothing else to it. Like, it looks like a ship. It looks like something that has been traveling to space. And I lose it because I start laughing, because my first thing is Randall pulls out the cigarette. I'm like, man, I don't think you should be smoking in this room. And then, Lionel's like, no smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts the cigarette out, and then he grabs another cigarette, and he's like, no smoking. And that becomes the thing, or at least we're assuming, as an audience member, that's the thing that causes, or that serves as the catalyst for the alien to hatch.
Yep.
And we get this moment where Lionel, and I'll even say Dr. Zara for that matter, what was his name? Guy and Targ, they all want to see what's taking place. And it's almost like the Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where you're not supposed to be looking at this. It's going to be bad. And Eric Andre, Randall and Dr. G, they both are kind of like, I'm not sure about this. I want to leave. And you see how their curiosity it's not curiosity. It's not infatuation with learning more. It's my safety, my understanding. And I did find it funny that the two, well, they're not the only ones, but two of the three characters of color make the choice not to invest in this. Whereas Dr. Zara, she's already been indoctrinated. She's already well invested in this because of her relationship. So she succumbs to this. I don't know if it was intentional as far as like, hey, we're going to have these two prominent characters and they're going to make it out based off their ethnicity. But it's definitely it's definitely that aspect of you got art and science making it. As far as like a couple of representations, but then you have a couple of representations of art and science that don't make it. And again, this could be reading way too much into it, but you could see that as people in those fields can do great things or succumb to bad things. And it's that old adage of science tells you what's possible. Humanities tells you why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And on the episode we done on Jurassic Park, I might have used that quote before because it would tell you like, oh, science, it's possible to regenerate dinosaurs or clone dinosaurs, but humanities will tell you why that's a bad idea and why you shouldn't do it. And if you don't listen to the two, as far as in conjunction with one another, you're doomed to fail. And that's what you see with Lionel, where it's I'm curious. I have oddities. I collect beyond the known. I want to know what's going on with this thing and what it actually means and how we fit into the universe. Sometimes just leave things as they are.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta have a sense of self-preservation, of humanity's preservation, of the safety of the people around you. Just a general sense of consequences of things, I think. It's a lot like what we're debating in AI right now, where people are going, oh, having AI in the arts is inevitable and it's science and it's the future. And I'm like, yeah, just because you guys can do it doesn't mean you get to ignore all of the human aspects of why this shouldn't be a thing and why we shouldn't be doing this and why it's going to be really bad if we do. It's exactly the same. Yeah, totally. I do love that it happened to be those two characters who made it out in the end, specifically Randall, like we were talking about earlier, because he did have these really deep introspective moments of like humanity and, considering himself and his career and everything that's happening. So it made a lot of sense to me when he was also one of the people looking at the damn thing and seriously considering whether or not he still wants to be in its vicinity.
Right.
And I think probably the same thing applies to Charlotte. She was one of the ones that was weighing things a lot more throughout the entire episode. So it did make sense that at the end she was, getting the hell out of there.
It's kind of interesting to me how there's almost a spectrum if you put people in pairs. So if you put the novelist and Randall together, it's like a spectrum of creativity. You have this guy who's selling a shitload, but you feel like I don't know if they directly said this, but he gives me the vibe of he puts out the same shit over and over again, and he's doing the bare minimum to be a bestseller and just living off his name, right? And then you have the creative who's doing the direct opposite and really looking for something that will fill this void that he talks about, like he's it's such a spectrum between the two. Yeah. And then you have science and the esoteric, and nothing against the esoteric here, because I I do believe there's some value in that stuff, but it's also, culturally and societally very looked down on compared to science. And so that's an interesting spectrum. But again, the problem isn't that he's an esoteric. The problem is that he's not actually open to whatever he's looking for. And I love that we get that he is not a charlatan, that he does have something there. I love that.
He's got something real going on.
Yeah, and so that validates it to me, and it becomes a spectrum between that and what is she, an astrophysicist? Like, I mean, so that becomes its own spectrum, and I like that one from each survives when you put them in those pairs,
that makes
and
sense.
One does not because of how they use it.
Actually, for how much I was bad-mouthing Targ earlier for being not fleshed out enough, and I still think I wish I knew more about him, but he does have the line that made me laugh the loudest, and it's so stupid, but I love it so much. When they're actually looking at the thing, the stone, the rock, and he goes, "Have you brought any psychics near it?" And Lionel goes, "Get you."
Yeah, that's pretty great.
It's just such a sort of pop of how he's fundamentally really naive and innocent, despite he's supposed to be a person who literally has more insight than any of us. And actually, he's this person who's like super naive and super childlike in a way.
Yeah, I almost felt like he was too, I don't know, just not I wasn't supposed to take him seriously.
He wasn't fleshed out.
Yeah, but just, I don't know, just like he was presented like playing into stereotypes. Like I'm gonna automatically assume this guy doesn't have power and he's just a fucking douchebag pretending,
I kind of feel like he's not a douche. I kind of feel like deep down he's kind of a sweet person. I just think he's just not the kind of person you'd want to have around you in an emergency, Like he wouldn't be on anybody's zombie apocalypse team. That's the feeling I got from him.
That's pretty great.
All right. Okay. So the alien, it comes out and I was looking up some goofs and things like that. So like the car itself wouldn't have been there because it was an 84. So
okay.
the Ferrari was actually the wrong year. I mean, these are like little goofs. Yeah. But what I found funny is like when the alien appears and he escapes the house, or it escapes the house, that it emerges in the LA River, that little duck thing that's there. And I just started laughing. I said, so now the alien is in Los Angeles. No one will notice. And it would have been the same thing. It would have been like a city like that has so much going on. It's so busy. Same thing with New York, or if it had been Paris or London. I don't think anybody would have noticed. They would have been like, "Can I take a picture with you?" Like that would have been $1. Yeah.
I mean,
then Psycho Gorman would have shown up and said, "Brother, what are you doing here?"
They were using the power blackout to sort of suggest, that it's going to have a massive impact on the city. But even when I saw that, I thought, I wonder how often they do get power cuts. Like normally, is this something that would be so strange and unusual? Or would people in town just go, "Oh no, not again,"
I would say with that time period, with throughout the 70s, you would have some power issues, and you've still got some power issues in parts of California now, and it's just because of the way the grid is and the amount of energy that's being used, and that it's getting older, right? As
so
opposed to
be like people would automatically assume there's an alien invasion going on.
No. You'd be like, "God damn it, we lost power again."
Run to Twitter to see if earthquake is trending.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. I mean, we would not think. I mean, that would be a good way to hide an alien invasion, to be honest. Like, we got a power outage, storms, or whatever. But no, it's common to have stuff like that happen, especially, I think, in New York in 76 or 77. They had major brownouts and blackouts that took place. And like people would go outside and stay out because it was too hot to stay inside in some cases. Well, that, and you had a serial killer running around. So bringing it back to serial killers at the beginning.
Also a very good way to hide an alien. So what
Yes.
I'm hearing is technically you guys could already be having aliens in the sewer system and you wouldn't know about it.
Look,
Almost
I guarantee
definitely.
you, we don't have to go to Congress with whatever that guy was trying to do in order to get money for the government or money for research into aliens in the United States. What was it, last month or the month before? The whole idea that we found biological matter and we've got aliens. Everyone basically reacted to it like, who cares? Rent's
Yeah,
too
we have
high.
rent to pay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, I could not have cared less about that if I tried. Like, do you realize how much shit we all have going on? We don't care. Let us know when it's on fire.
Exactly. Let us know if
an
the aliens are actually
stupid enough to
attacking.
come here. If an alien's stupid enough to come here right now, that's on them.
Yeah, it's kind of its own fault at that point.
Look, there's a quote or a meme that I love when it talks about aliens where it says, I get the feeling that Earth is the planet that when the aliens fly by, they lock their doors. They're like, oh no, we're not going to Earth. We're not going to Earth. Those guys are.
I saw another that said Earth is the place they use as an asylum. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And it explains so many people.
Yes.
We're supposed to think that this ending is suggesting to us that, the catastrophic things are going to happen past the end of this episode. And then in reality, if you think about it, it's like, wow, that alien is fucked, isn't he? He's going to have a very bad time. He's going to get mugged. He's not going to have any place to live. Who knows?
I would like to watch this.
Eats.
I feel he's going to get eaten.
The rest of this entire story is going to be this poor alien trying to get on Social Security somehow, trying to find healthcare. It's going to be this alien trying to access healthcare. That's it. That's the next 3 hours of horror right there.
Oh man.
Hi, sir. Welcome to County Memorial Hospital. How can I help you? I was attacked on the street. I need assistance. Insurance, please. What is this insurance?
It'll be like the whole first quarter of His House.
God, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I feel like the alien is just another collector. Like he's collected Lionel. And so I don't think he's going to go after like all of LA. I think he'll find something interesting. Maybe it'll be in LA. Maybe he'll leave. I don't know. I don't know if he has a way off the planet, but
what's the what are the qualifications to be collected then? Because you saw 2 people make it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's weird that everybody dies differently. Like Lionel gets literally swallowed up into this, and then he uses his body to get around, right? Like, was Lionel just in the wrong spot, or was he purposely chosen? Like, if Randall had been standing there instead, would it be Randall? I don't know. I don't know if it would have slithered past him to go get the right guy,
I think it was Lionel because of all the blood work that was being done on him, as far as like the way that Dr. Zara worked on him and built whatever concoctions that she made in order to ensure that he was going to be healthy. So maybe it's an issue if he's a healthy host.
Maybe.
I mean, as far as like biologically healthier than the other 2 or other 3.
Okay, but here's my Oh, go ahead.
I was actually curious about, there's a point after Lionel gets swallowed up where the creature says, "Help me." Do you remember that? Am I misreading this, or do we actually not know for sure whether it was Lionel in the creature or the creature saying "help me" at that point?
I felt it was Lionel. I mean, that was my view.
But I like the alien better.
Yeah, oh my God, I've taken this horrible parasite.
Right? That's what I was thinking. It could be either. We don't know for sure that it was Lionel at that point.
You know what, Alex? I can prove that it was the alien. You ready?
Yeah.
It went outside. Lionel doesn't go outside, so clearly the alien's in charge.
It's true. So yeah, the alien was like, fuck, what did I just do?
My question that still lingers with me is just, what is the point of the doctor's driving skills? Like, they could have gotten away without the driving skills, but we get it at the beginning of the movie, and then we get it in the big escape to get away from the house. But they could have just driven away, and it wouldn't have been any weirder.
Yeah.
Like, am I missing something? What is the point of this?
Literally, nobody was
crazy.
chasing them at that point. So yeah.
Yeah. She's just driving crazy. She's like, look at this sweet car. Let's do this. But like,
I think it's because
I don't know if
Randall's
it serves
so
a purpose.
freaked out. I don't think it serves. I think it's just that because Randall's still like so freaked out that she still happens to have a level head to where she can drive.
Because the only other thing I could come up with is that this just feeds into how we don't know these people. Like we look at her and she is the last person in that room that I would say was driving the car at the beginning. Right.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's just another like your stereotypes or nothing kind of thing.
I sort of took it like a kind of Tarantino moment where it didn't serve a purpose necessarily. They just thought it would look really cool, and I was okay with that, honestly, because it did look kind of cool. But yeah, I do like that interpretation, that it is part of how we just don't know these people and how there's a lot of stories that we are not being told behind this one.
Right.
But like, if we're talking about stuff that we don't actually know whether or not it makes sense, hang on a minute, okay? Did this alien creature genuinely hatch out of its thingy because of weed smoke? Is that a real freaking thing that we are talking about? Like, we're not even addressing the fact that the reason why this thing suddenly decided to wake up, because presumably they've touched it before, they've looked at it before, they've been in the room with it before, at the very least Lionel and his assistant. So none of that was it. No, it was Randall's weed smoke that made this creature wake up. Like,
because the tobacco didn't do it. Because
the tobacco didn't do it. Yeah.
Because he's like, I thought it. I just like the idea that he thought smoking was different because he's like, it's just a J.
Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious.
It doesn't count as smoking. Yeah, but we did have, growing up, people had that sort of attitude that it didn't count as smoking. I'm familiar with that one. But yeah, so it literally, it's just weed smoke for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Like, we have no idea why it would be that and nothing else, and we just accept that one.
Well, as you know, weed is a gateway drug. So it opened the gateway for the alien to come through.
That's the gateway to eating people.
God damn you, James.
Am I the only one who thought that Lionel was really odd in this part? Because he's like, no smoking. No smoking. Like, it felt like that Willy Wonka feel of, oh no, don't do that. Please stop.
Now that you mention it, yeah, it was kind of.
I can see that.
It was kind of against his character, and then it almost sounded like he knew it would do something, because otherwise, like, why would you assume it would have any effect?
And then, like, had they done this before? Is that why there's no smoking in this room? Like, say I took him seriously. Why did they implement this rule? This is very strange. We have drug use everywhere, but not in here, buddy.
Not in here. Like, it might
this
just
is
be
strictly
one of those...
no space cocaine room, okay?
It might just be one of those things that's there because it was kind of funny and because it was needed for the plot, and not necessarily because it was in character with Lionel. And I'm okay with that. Like, every story has a couple of hall passes to do stuff like that just because it's cool. That's fine. You know, as long as the story itself is still entertaining and we love it, then I don't care. I'll let it slide.
Here is the question.
All right.
I've never done cocaine. I don't think I ever will. And I'm saying that because I don't know. I mean, you know, if my rule is very simple with drug use. If I am in a room, and let's just say, like, I've never smoked marijuana, but if Willie Nelson or Snoop Dogg are like, hey, come hang out with us, I'm like, light it up. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking do this. Because if you're going to do it with anybody, do it with one of them, right?
Okay. Yeah, so I can see that.
If it were something like this opportunity, like, oh, well, I've never done cocaine. Like, well, this isn't cocaine. This is a special mixture, blah, blah, blah. I think at a certain age, let's just say by the time I get 55 or 60, like, if younger, I wouldn't have done it. But I think after I've done everything in my life, as far as like starting a family, having a career, going to school, all that stuff, where it's not going to be in jeopardy, I think it would be like that. Like, somebody's like, hey, we want to, I don't know, to go back to the earlier example, Samuel L. Jackson, and, you know, I end up running into him, and he he wants to do a movie, and there's a movie producer who wants to sign off on it. But at the meeting, he's like, "Hey, let's. I want to see you at your highest level," and he pulls out some cocaine. I might be tempted. But I doubt that would ever happen. So I just look at it as if it were one of those situations where it's like, hey, we're going to give you a 6-figure book deal. I'm like, look, here, give me the straw. But let's go.
It's like those things that couples do where they're like have a list of people who they would be allowed to, step out with just because those people are so improbable to ever even remotely, like they're all stars and movie stars and stuff. Kind of like that. Like you have a list of people who it's not going to happen, but if it was going to happen, then maybe, yeah, I can see that. I could subscribe to that sort of thing.
I don't think I would still do cocaine.
What if
like there's nobody? There's absolutely
Cocaine
nobody
Bear showed up?
If Cocaine Bear showed up, then I would feed the cocaine to Cocaine Bear.
No, but Cocaine Bear might hand you a straw and tell you like,
I don't think she shares.
She,
but
but I mean that's my rationale. Like if it were a very super improbable situation, but everything in my life has been taken care of to where it's like no risk other than the health risk that comes with it. But you have health risk every day. I think I would. I might. I'm not saying I would. I mean, but more than likely, I would probably say like, "Oh no, thank you. I've never done it. I'm not interested." And then I would just let them, enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I would do it, but I don't think I can also say, oh, there's definitely nobody on this planet that could possibly be worth it or convince me to. I'm kind of a sucker. I can be convinced relatively easily. So it might be possible. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, no, absolutely not. Never at all would I ever do such a thing, officers. Of course not. Absolutely not. Mm-mm.
Look, we're speaking hypothetical stuff that is not happening. You don't have access to it. It's not being put in front of you. None of us have it. So you don't have to worry about any legal consequences.
Just one of the many things we have to research for our books.
We'll do a panel at StokerCon where we all do cocaine and talk about books.
We'll call it cracking the book open, or cracking the pages. There we go.
As opposed to this current panel that we're on right now when we're all doing books and just talking about cocaine. Yes.
Whoa, crazy.
We sound like way more exciting people than we
reading between the lines. There you go.
Oh, perfect. Great job. This concludes another episode of the Necronama.com. Join us next time as we conclude our look at Cabinet of Curiosities with Episode 8, The Murmuring.